Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 707, and today's date is July 2nd, 2015, and the title of this episode is The U.S.-Driven Fake Economy is Ready to Collapse. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, the situation in Greece hasn't really changed much, but we've seen a lot of propaganda, a lot of news stories coming out, especially from the central bankers, the U.S. government, the European governments, and we see that we have to remember one thing here. The central bankers do everything for themselves, and if things aren't going their way, they manipulate them. We also have to remember all of this debt that they're giving Greece, 90% of it, where did it go? It went to the private banks. It bailed them out. It doesn't go to the people. It doesn't help the people whatsoever. And right now, these central bankers don't like what's going on. They don't like that Tspiras, and now he put it on the people of Greece, are standing up to the central banker saying, no, you know something? We don't want this anymore. The people have been calling for it for a very long time. Who wants to live in poverty? Who wants to live without a job and searching for that next meal? Who wants to live out on the streets? Nobody. Why would they want to continue this? They've done this for years. Has it helped them? No. They know this. The central bankers and the governments around the world that are controlled by the central banking system, they're trying to convince everyone that Greek people are lazy. They don't work. They don't want to work. Yes, they do. Everyone wants the same thing. They want to bring in money to their family. They want to support their family. They want to pay their bills. They want to live their life without the government interfering. They don't want to live on the street. They don't want to worry about getting their next meal from someplace. They don't want to be worried about being laid off. They want to go on vacation. They would like to buy new things. I mean, I know I do. I'm not against having money. I'm against the central bankers stealing the money from the everyday person. And this is what we're seeing. I mean, Russia is out there, and they're telling Europe to respect the Greek choice. Russia is urging the EU to respect the decision that Greece makes in the referendum. Russia also says they see no threat of Greek exit from the Euro area. Now, I think they're using these words for public relations. I think they're trying to calm the situation down. I think they do believe that the people are going to vote no. At least they're hoping for that. And I believe at a certain point in time, they will be announcing that they will be leaving the euro. Now, of course, the central bankers are not going to let this happen. They're not going to say, okay, we agree with this. See you later. Have a good time, because they're nervous about the situation. They don't want the situation going the way the Tspiras government wants. They want it to go their way, and they will do whatever they have to make it go their way. We see that there are 2 Greek banks that are going to open up and accept deposits. Now, of course, once you put that money in, you can't get it out. That's the problem. So I don't see everyone just running to the bank saying, oh, let me put my money into the bank. Even if you had a check or something, once you deposit it, it's stuck in there right now. You really can't get it out. So I don't know how this is going to benefit anyone. You might as well just hold on to the checks at this point in time. But we'll have to watch that and see where that goes. Now, of course, the central bankers are out there with their rating agency like S&P and all the others. Of course, we can't really believe them because they told us that the subprime securities, they were solid AAA. And there was no need to worry about them whatsoever, and they completely collapsed the entire system. So they were way off on that. But they're telling us, they're out there saying that, listen, if Greece does exit, the consequences to the Greek economic system will mean that their GDP will shrink by 20%. Well, I think the opposite's going to happen. I think if they leave, I think it's going to grow by 20%. Because if they leave, they'll no longer have this debt burden. If they leave, they're most likely going to start their own currency or side with Russia or the BRICS system. They will spur economic growth in the country, and we will see the country grow. And of course, they're out there saying, well, Greece will lose access to financing from the European Central Bank. Well, there are other central banks they can go to. Actually, Greece can go and create their own currency. Maybe not peg it to the euro. Maybe peg it to the yuan. Maybe peg it to the ruble. I mean, Standard & Poor's are out there. They're predicting that the new Greek currency will depreciate against the euro. Yes, at first it will. But as time goes on, things will improve, because if they can spur economic growth, increase manufacturing, put people back to work, they will have revenue. And if they get rid of the debt, the country will grow. Look at Iceland. Of course, the corporate media, the central bankers, the other governments, they keep that very quiet. They're improving. They're putting their bankers in jail. They haven't joined the euro. The country announced that they're going to create their own currency instead of depending on the central banking system. And this will make the country prosper. So we can see at this point in time what these credit rating agencies, what the central bankers are telling us. It's going to be the opposite effect. And what they're really worried about, this whole entire thing, is that if Greece leaves the euro and returns, let's say, to the drachma, and it is successful, and they spur economic growth, they revitalize the economy, reestablish a functional government that collects taxes and pays debts, wouldn't this encourage other countries that are struggling right now to say, wait a minute, this looks pretty darn good? I mean, think about it. Italy, Ireland, Portugal, France. They might say, you know something? Maybe we should step away from the European Union. Maybe we should do the same thing. A successful Greece would show others and many other people that you need to do this to get your country back on its feet. And the central bankers know this. They know the country will prosper without them. And this is what they are very worried about. This is why they will do whatever they have to stop the referendum and having the people vote no. So we know at this point in time that the Troika, central bankers, they're going to try to fix the referendum. They want a yes vote. And we see already the propaganda out there where the corporate media, governments are out there saying, well, from our polls right now, we're showing that everybody wants to stay in the euro. We want this yes vote. And once we have the yes vote, Tspiras and the finance minister, they need to resign. If you notice, I don't know how many people have seen this, but we see a lot of this where they're saying, well, if we get a yes vote, I resign, I'm not. No, what's happening is they're trying to convince everyone they need to let them go. And this is their plan. Their plan is to strangle Greece, have them suffer, and show them what it's like not to have the backing of the central bankers. And once they can get this yes vote through any way they possibly can, they want the Tspiras, the Syriza party, to completely resign. And they want to put in a puppet government. even if they have to fake the yes vote, like they did in Scotland, where they manipulated the voting. They're going to do the same thing. And we're going to have to watch this because we're going to see evidence that all of a sudden these ballots came out of nowhere, that are neatly packaged, that all say yes. And we know from someone interviewing one of these people that were saying yes, yeah, we don't care if it hurts 95% of the population. We don't care if people are living on the streets. We don't care if we go further into debt and we don't have food and we can't find jobs. We need to stay with the euro because it makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. And we can see at this point in time, the central bankers are nervous. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't go their way, if there's some type of an event in Greece. I wouldn't be surprised if they take a shot, and I'm talking a bullet, to Tspiras to remove him, or something else occurs. I wouldn't be surprised if they go that far. Because again, the central bankers have no allegiance to any country, government, or people. It's to themselves. And they will do whatever they possibly can to make sure that other countries don't see another country prospering when they leave the central banking system. Because if this gets out, other countries will follow. People will wake up and say, wait a minute. Under the central bank rule, we have austerity, which doesn't work. We have debt. We have no growth. People suffer. And when you remove the central banking system, the country grows. People get jobs. There's no debt. We don't need austerity. People are able to feed their families. And they're very nervous about this. Here in the United States, it looks like they are pushing this recovery hard. They came out with the unemployment numbers, and now it has dropped to 5.3%. Now, we've had all these announcements of layoffs, and layoffs are continuing, but we have to remember they discontinued that department in the government that reports on layoffs back in 2013 because of budget constraints. Well, I think they did that on purpose, so nobody knows how many people are getting laid off. This way they don't have to report on it, and they just show you the job gain. So they can show you that, oh, look, 223,000 people were added, but we're not going to show you the 400 or the 369,000 that were laid off. So actually there were no jobs added whatsoever. We're in negative territory. So they leave that completely out. And this is what we're seeing right now. They've lowered the unemployment rate to 5.3%, but what was worse is that the previous number was revised from 280,000 to 254,000. They always go back and revise the numbers. Worst of all, the average hourly earnings were flat despite expectations of a 0.2% and a big drop from last month of 0.3%. In June, employment continued to trend up in temporary help services. They added 20,000 jobs in the temp help area. Healthcare, because of Obamacare, the government paying for these jobs, 40,000 jobs in June. Retail increased by 33,000 in June. And if we really look at this and we break it down, we're seeing that the household survey reported a decline of 56,000 workers in June. The U.S. labor force once again deteriorated rapidly, with part-time jobs added in June surging by 161,000, while the number of full-time jobs dropped by 349,000. We are a part-time nation. It is completely falling apart. So to put this number in context, the total number of U.S. workers has long since surpassed its previous crisis high. The number of full-time U.S. workers has yet to overtake its November 2007 of 121.9 million, and in June dropped to 121.1 million. Why is this a problem? Because while the U.S. still has 800,000 full-time jobs to go to at least to regain the prior peak. During the same time period, the U.S. civilian non-institutional population has risen from 232.9 million to 250.7 million, an increase of 17.7 million. And when we look at this and we see what's going on, people have dropped out of the labor force. Now, this doesn't mean they're not looking for work. This means the government is not counting them. If you're still looking for a job, but you haven't been on an interview in the last 4 weeks, you are not counted. I mean, you could be looking for a year. They're just not going to count you anymore. And when we look at this, we see that the number of people who dropped out this time, it's 640,000 people, bringing the number of people out of the workforce up to 93.6 million people, with the result being a participation rate of 62.6, or where it was in September of 1977. So again, where are all these people working? They are not. These numbers are completely manipulated, and they're really pushing this hard to make everyone believe that we're in a recovery. Because I do believe that we're heading towards this 100 days that I reported on in my couple reports ago, that we're going to see a major event. Because they need to cover up this entire collapse. And when we look at this, we see that since 2007, the U.S. has lost 1.4 million manufacturers, and they've gained 1.4 million waiters and bartenders. We are replacing the manufacturing jobs with part-time help. The country cannot grow. The country cannot bring in revenue to pay for this debt. Actually, what we're seeing is the same thing that's happening in Greece right now. There is no difference. The only difference is the U.S. government central bankers can continually create money, but the debt continually piles up. The revenue decreases because people are getting part-time work. They're not getting that full-time salary anymore. And this is going to create a problem. We see that the real estate market is completely collapsing. And here's some proof. Home builders have added few jobs in recent months. So they're telling us that real estate is doing well, that people are building, houses are going up, but home builders have added very few jobs. Employment for residential building construction fell by 6,100 spots last month, the weakest showing in 5 years. This real estate market is a central bank bubble. The same with student loan, the same with the auto industry, the same with the stock market, the derivative market, the bond market. It is a central bank economy, not a people economy. And when we look at the layoffs, we see that employers announced 44,842 job reductions last month, according to the global outplacement firm Challenger Gray and Christmas. In May, they reported that there were 41,000 planned layoffs. So we're seeing all of these layoffs. They're not getting jobs. If they do, it's a part-time job, and you have to remember how they calculate this. If you come from a full-time job, they show it as you lost a job. If then you replace it with a part-time job, it shows that you have a job. If you had to get 2 part-time jobs to cover that one job you have, they count it twice. This is how they manipulate the numbers to make everyone convinced that everything is absolutely fine and we're in this recovery. Remember what the Fed said. We are almost at full employment. They're getting ready to make a decision if they should raise interest rates. And I'm going to discuss that a little bit later. But what we're seeing right now is that auto sales have tumbled and missed for the 6 of the last 7 months. auto sales aren't doing as well as everyone is saying. Auto sales, SAAR, S-A-A-R, dropped from 17.171 million to 17.11 million, the biggest percentage drop month on month since December 2014. And you have to remember, they are sucking everyone in they possibly can. If you have a heartbeat, they will give you an automobile. They are channel stuffing the dealerships to make it look like the factories are producing, but guess what? It's not working anymore. Things are accelerating. It is falling apart. Now, we discussed manufacturing. We discussed the Baltic Dry Index, and it's continually dropping. It's down to 794. It's holding steady right now, and that is the raw material that factories use because the factories need to produce when the people are out there purchasing, and we don't see people out there purchasing. But what's very interesting is that this has never happened outside of a recession. Year over year, factory orders dropped by 6.3%, adjusted, but 8% non-adjusted, the most since the financial crisis. Well, factory orders has now missed 10 of the last months. Factory orders have fallen for 9 of the last 10 months. And what is this signaling? It's signaling that there is a recession/depression coming, or if you like to call it, a collapse. Now, what I see is that they are ramping up and they're using their manipulated statistical numbers to convince us that we're in a recovery. And we know coming down into the end of July into August, we know we have Jade Helm. We know Congress goes on vacation in August. We understand there are many events that are going to occur during this period of time. A lot of people are saying that something might happen in the fall. And we continually hear the Fed out there talking about raising the interest rates, pushing it up, saying it's now time where we raise the interest rates. It will not hurt the economy. And I think what they're planning to do, and this is why they're continually pushing it off, because they want the economy to improve enough to convince everyone that we're in a recovery, that the U.S. government central bankers have done their job. And they have the ability to slowly bring this economy to a collapse situation. Think back in 2007, 2008, where they let the interest rates creep up a little bit. And they brought it up, and people who had adjustable rate mortgages, the stock market, the subprime securities, a lot of the companies, things started to fall apart at that point in time. People left their homes. No one knew what was really going on at that point. And they can do the same thing right now without it looking like they actually brought the economy down. Because what they'll do is they'll let the interest rates rise a little bit. They'll say, see, look, nothing happened. Everything is fine. It didn't crash the economy. We're on the right track. We're recovering. Everything is perfect. They have the interest rates tick up a little bit more. Things start to fall apart. At this point in time, I can see them getting ready for the event. And once they push the event through, they can say, look, this group or country caused the economic collapse. We were raising interest rates. Everything was fine. We were in a recovery. And look what happened. I think this is what they're getting ready for. Everything is pointing to this. All indicators are showing that, yes, we are headed in this direction. And we see from the Fed whisperer, Hilsenrath, he is hinting that Yellen will hike the rates in 2015. And they keep saying this. They want to do it in the second half of 2015, maybe in the beginning of the fall, bringing us into, later fall and having another one brought up. I think they're actually going to do it. I think they're going to start off very slowly, and this way it can build to a collapse. Remember, they don't want to be responsible for this economic collapse. They want this blamed on someone else. And they want to be in control of it. And they know that if they raise the interest rates, they know that this whole system cannot survive. The amount of debt cannot be sustained with interest rates going up. It won't work. The real estate market, the automobile industry will not work. Because you have to remember, when this rate goes up, it kicks a lot of people out of the market. And people are just struggling right now just to afford that house. If interest rates go up, they can't afford that house, they can't afford that car. We have problems in the market. And we will definitely see this. And I think they're getting prepared and ready to do this. Now, when will that exactly be? We don't know, but it's starting to look like something might happen towards the second half of this year. Now, the BRIC system, as we know, is going live, and we understand the AIIB has 57 countries signed up with them. And right now, Russia's top diplomat noted that the BRICS member countries should be the key element of the global management system. He's saying that the member countries did not join forces against anybody else. On the contrary, we are focusing on promoting the positive, unifying agenda. He's saying the joint stance of our countries plays a very important stabilizing role. The stance is balanced, and it helps the countries work together. And this is coming from Lavrov in Russia. And again, I'm not siding with any type of system because each system can become corrupt. The central bankers can take over. Central bankers might have their hands in this. And eventually what will happen, just like our founding fathers have told us, everyone will have to fight against the central bankers because they will make the system completely impossible. You'll have to fight for your freedom. You'll have to fight for democracy. And we see this continually happening time and time again. And we know the central bankers are pushing for war. They need to cover up this entire collapse scenario so they can restart it. And we're getting closer and closer to this. There was a survey out there, and the survey said that 35% of Americans would consider leaving the United States. And we know a lot of people have turned in their passports, renounced their citizenship. And a lot of people are getting very nervous. They see what's happening in this country, and they're looking for a different place to live. A study polling American and immigrant adults found that 35% would consider leaving the U.S., according to TransferWise. The most popular reason was wanting to leave the country was to seek a better quality of life. And we know from what we've been seeing, the government is continually trying to control the people. They're taxing the people. They're removing the people's rights. They're re-educating our young to think that they don't have the rights, that they're privileges. We see Obamacare was pushed through without anyone really reading it. We see the TPP, the same exact thing. All these things are in secret. This is not a transparent, open, democratic country. This is a fascist country where the corporate powers, the bankers, keep what they want secret because it doesn't benefit the people. It benefits themselves. There's no reason to keep it a secret if it benefits everybody. You would want everyone to know. But we see Congress and the U.S., they are not working for the people anymore. And we see from what Obama has been telling us about all the different things in this country, especially Obamacare, that most of it turns out to be a lie. I mean, the Affordable Care Act is not affordable, it's expensive. Actually, most of the people are still uninsured. Right now, Obamacare only covers 1/3 of Americans. There are 32 million still that do not have health insurance. And he didn't give you health insurance. You pay for it. You paid for it before. Actually, the cost was less. Now it's more expensive with less benefit. So the government didn't give you anything. Actually, what they did was they said, listen, if you don't do what we say, we're going to penalize you if you don't take it. Before Obamacare, the premiums were lower, and if you didn't want it, you didn't get penalized. So how are we better off? And most of the people were forced into it because of his mandates, because you didn't get to keep your doctor. You didn't get to keep your health insurance. You had to move over to Obamacare. So those same people that were uninsured before Obamacare are the same people that are uninsured after Obamacare. He did nothing except bring in the revenue and increase the debt of the country. Actually, the CBO report shows that Obamacare increases deficits by a total of $1.1 billion over a 10-year period. Obamacare adds $1.1 trillion to the national debt, increases taxes by $800 billion. If you look at Obamacare, there's 18 new taxes and penalties totaling $836 billion. This was created to bring revenue into the government. That's it. Well, we can't forget about the insurance companies who wrote the bill. They're profiting like there's no tomorrow. And if they don't profit from Obamacare, don't worry. The people of America will bail them out with taxpayer money. So for the insurance companies, it's a win-win. They're all together. Health insurance is mandatory. They just removed competition. They can raise the premiums to whatever they want. It makes no difference. Taxes are intertwined in Obamacare to bring revenue into the government. You're penalized if you do not do what the government wants. But of course, the government employees, they're exempt. Our leaders, I don't even like to call them that, didn't sit down and say, listen, this is so good, I'm taking it. They didn't do it when it came out. They all ran for cover. Even the president who said, oh, look, I'm taking over. No, he kept his own health. He kept the other health insurance because it's better. They didn't give us anything. Now, we all understand the government has control of the money system. They create the money, the central bankers. We also understand the U.S. government central bankers have control over the corporate media. They tell them what to say and they just repeat it. They don't do any type of investigating reporting. They don't look into anything. They just believe whatever the government is saying. And then you have the internet with the new media, or some people like to call them the alternative media. And the government does not like this because every time they try to do something to convince people with different events, the alternative, the new media comes out and says, well, listen, we just did a search on that photo that you're showing us, and that was from 2008, and you're trying to tell us that was a new photo that was just taken, and it kind of squashes everything they're trying to convince everyone with. So they decided to implement trolling, where they paid people to go out and comment on the new media to try to discredit them. And then they try to plant stories and things like that. And basically that kind of fell apart because of Edward Snowden, where he said, yes, there are trolls. Actually, there's a lot of bots out there that will just take the title of whatever the person is talking about in an article or on a video and just automatically have a rebuttal to that title. Or they will use curse words or get a little angry at what is going on to convince people that the new media, the alternative media, whoever is saying whatever they're saying is absolutely ridiculous. But we're starting to see that this is kind of falling apart and people are seeing through this. Well, they're taking it one more step here. And those people who've decided to buy a domain name, start their own website or start their own news site, who would like to stay private, and they went in and they selected privacy on the domain, or there's activists or other bloggers who don't want their name out there, who want to stay private, which is your right, which doesn't mean something's going on, is that you're a private person, but you like to discuss what's going on in the world. Well, the overseers at ICANN, they are deciding on how to interpret the word that would put your private information into the hands of the government, the different agencies, and that word is commercial. The Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, is thinking of limiting the privacy of sites it considers commercial, potentially putting the contact information of benign site owners in the open. Now, there's going to be different rules for different things, like those sites that are created by the government that are trying to basically convince everyone that the new media, the alternative media, is crazy, and they try to muddy the waters here with their own information. Those sites, those can remain private, so you don't know it's the government. Everyone else, you'll be able to know who they are. Actually, this is what the government wants. They want to know who these people are. And once they find out who they are, they can target them. I mean, it could be bloggers, dissidents, activists. It will make it easier for the government to go after them. Well, it's very easy for them to find out. If they have a case, it's called a search warrant. If they want to find out something about somebody and they want to go after them, they have to prove their case and get a search warrant in front of a judge. It's that simple. But as we heard from the FBI, as we heard from the government, DHS, CIA, they don't want privacy. They don't want encryption. They don't want people using ciphers. It makes it harder for them, and they don't have a case that they can use to go and find these names. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to change the laws right now to take control of what is going on. Of course, they're going to make it like, oh, we have to go after those people who are violating the copyright law. Well, then if they're violating a law, get a search warrant, make your case, and you can find out the person's name. It's that simple. We understand that the NSA spies on everybody, and the leaked documents from Edward Snowden that went back to 2013 described a program called XKeyscore, XKS, and showed how the U.S. government can see almost everything one does on the internet. The new portion of the classified files reveals how easily it can be done. As easy as typing a few words into Google. A new set of training manual reveals the breadth of this program and how easily an analyst can break into remote computers with using a few mouse clicks. Using only target's email address, telephone number, name, or other identifying data, an analyst has the ability to conduct sweeping searches of his or her personal data. They intercept pictures, documents, voice calls, webcam photos, web searches, advertising analytic traffic, social media traffic. You name it, they're capturing it. And it's not hard to do. And again, if you have encryption or you take steps to protect yourself, it makes it harder for them. And this is why they're continually telling you not to do this. And again, encryption is nothing new. This goes back thousands of years. People have used all different types of ciphers to hide their private messages so the governments cannot read it. Because it's none of their business. When you send a piece of mail, why do you seal it in an envelope? There's no reason to do that. If you want everyone to read it, don't seal it. But you seal it because it's your private information. Why do you keep things in your house locked up? Because it's your private information. You don't want anyone to see it. Now, out in Ukraine, we see the situation is ramping up there. Poroshenko signed a law on ratification of a memorandum with the European Union where they're going to receive about $2 billion, and they'll receive that loan to help out the economy. This country just continually sinks further and further into debt. The Donetsk People's Republic, they're going to have elections on October 18th. Let's see if we make it that far before fighting breaks out. The Donetsk militia has withdrawn from Shirokino, like they said they were going to do. We see right now there is a new drill happening in the Pacific. Operation Talisman Saber is coming soon, scheduled at just the right time as the global economy trembles because nations of the world are defaulting on their debts. 33,000 United States and Australian military personnel will be engaged in Operation Talisman Saber. and this is happening in the Pacific, to contain China. Perfect timing. The NSA has a leak, and the leak says that Washington is negotiating with every nation that borders China to confront China. We see that the Libyan government in Tripoli, not the puppet regime, it seems that the talks have broken off. The two governments and the UN couldn't come to any understanding. And I know what was going on here. The UN, the puppet government of Libya that is controlled by the United States government central bankers, they wanted control of the government, and the government that was elected, that's in Tripoli, could not go along with this. They would lose their power. And right now, they're saying that there has to be some type of diplomatic way of solving this, and it seems like it's completely breaking down. And this is why they've been pushing the idea that the proxy army of the United States, Israel, UK, and other nations, they are in Libya. They are in Yemen. They are in Iraq. Because what they're doing is they're making the case so the United States can get into these countries, because once that authorization of war is passed, it's open season on all these countries. They can go right into them and restore the puppet governments. We see there's more propaganda coming out saying that the proxy army of the United States government, central bankers, Israel, UK, and other nations, they're trying to get their hands on some chemical weapons that Assad has. They're trying to get to his stockpile and use it here in the United States. So they're trying to tell you in two different ways that Assad still has chemical weapons, because we see this propaganda coming out. And they're trying to tell you that these are going to be stolen and used here in the United States. And they're saying that America is not prepared for a chemical attack. And we have to think back. About 2 years ago, New York had a drill practicing a chemical weapons attack in the subway system. And we know, coming up to this 4th of July, NYPD, FBI, they are all on high alert. And a lot of people have been writing in about this. And we have to understand, let's believe the story about the threat on 4th of July. They're telling us it's all over the place. We see it all over the corporate media. If something happens, all the spying from the NSA, DHS, FBI, everyone giving up their rights, they had no way of stopping it whatsoever. So all of this was a waste of money. Now, if nothing happens, as they're telling us it's going to happen, and nothing happens, this tells us that their system doesn't work at all. Because at this point in time, they can't even show the proof or any type of fact or any information of what's going to happen. So in either scenario, they're kind of screwed. And it looks like there's two agendas here, and I don't think they care at this point in time. One is to keep the people in fear. They're telling people not to have 4th of July celebrations. I don't think many people are going to listen. And they're trying to convince everyone to be in fear on the day of independence. Independent from the British government. Independent from maybe the federal government. And they're trying to, keep everyone in fear, controlled during this time. And if they do pull some type of an event off, this might kickstart the war in the Middle East with this event. And they might try to scare everyone, but it's going to have to be big. It's going to have to be in many different cities. It just can't be in one place, because they're going to have to convince everyone that this is something we need to be concerned about. It can't be like that Texas thing that happened where they were doing the Muhammad drawing. This was going to have to be something coordinated. It's going to have to be big. We're seeing signs about the fiber optic cables cut so people don't have internet access. We understand there was an attack on a power grid infrastructure. We understand that they're talking about a cyber 9/11, or is that a virtual 9/11? A cyber Pearl Harbor. And we know that this event will be coming very soon. And we all need to be prepared and ready for it. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.